On July 13th, more than 100,000 Norwegians gathered at Oslo's Palace Square to celebrate a football team. The team had lost. The Crown Prince played drums. The King received the players. 100,000 arms pulled back in unison. We all know the Viking row and its reach. Boston's South Station. Times Square. The Norwegian Parliament. The armed forces in uniform. A primary school teacher invented it in a bar, and within 6 months, it became a national export. But why? One word: Fellesskap. Fellesskap is not just fellowship or community. It is the experience of being together, the shared emotion, the knowledge that everyone around you is feeling the same thing at the same time. A sociologist named Mads Skauge told a newspaper during the tournament that they were not only celebrating the country's national football team, but celebrating fellowship with the national team as a symbol of that. It is not the first time Norwegians have come out in unity. Every year on the 17th of May, Constitution Day, the country shuts down. Streets fill with children's parades, families dressed in traditional bunad, a collective ritual that predates the modern state. The World Cup was another. But so was July 22, 2011, the biggest terror attack in Norway since the Second World War. The day after, 200,000 Norwegians gathered in Oslo carrying roses. There was no call to arms, no demand for vengeance. There was a decision made collectively and without coordination to meet violence with community. After our previous videos, the comments told a story of their own. People wrote that watching the streets of Oslo during the World Cup made them want to come to Norway. Not for the fjords, not for the northern lights, for the unity. To stand in a crowd that moves together, that feels together, that celebrates something larger than the individual. Which raises a question. Is unity a driving force for visiting a country? Norway's tourism industry markets nature. The Preikestolen Cliff, the Lofoten Islands, the Aurora dancing over Tromsø. But no tourist board runs advertisements promising the experience of Fellesskap. And yet, that is exactly what the world saw. That is what people said they wanted. One newspaper wrote that Norwegians had not seemed so unified since the end of the Second World War. What kind of society produces that? Norway has 5.6 million people spread across a landmass larger than Germany. Strangers do not speak on public transport. Eye contact is a minor transgression. This is a culture that elevated personal space to near constitutional status. And yet, during those weeks, Norwegians filled city squares at midnight. Parents woke their children, decorated living rooms with flags. A bar in Oslo's Gronland district filled with strangers becoming friends over tables they happened to share. The row spread because anyone could join. You did not need to know a song. You did not need to be Norwegian. You sat down, you pulled back, you shouted one syllable. The barrier to entry was zero. The world misread it. The row looked aggressive, as Viking imagery tends to. But Frøystad, the teacher who invented it, said nothing about conquest. He said he wanted Norway to be remembered. The Vikings rode into battle. Their descendants rode into a loss and called it the greatest summer of their lives. So why does a nation of reserved individualists celebrate a defeat? The surface explanation is novelty. Norway had not been on this stage in a generation. But novelty does not explain Parliament rowing in session. It does not explain the military releasing celebration videos. Novelty does not produce Fellesskap? The deeper answer is that Norway is built around participation. Norway has won more Winter Olympic medals, 446, than any other nation in history, from a population smaller than Singapore. The explanation is structural. Children's sports in Norway do not keep score until age 11. The emphasis is on everyone playing, on the joy of movement rather than the outcome. The system maximizes involvement. It does not filter for winners. When Norway took the global stage, that same programming activated at national scale. The point was not the result. The point was that Norway was there. Then there is Janteloven, the law of Jante. The unwritten code that says you are not to think you are special. You are not to think you are better than anyone else. Janteloven polices arrogance. It discourages grandiosity. But during those weeks, it performed an unexpected function. It gave Norwegians permission to celebrate without shame because there was no arrogance to police. They had lost. Celebrating a loss is humble. It says, we are not claiming to be the best. We are claiming to be part of something. The celebration was the point. The Fellesskap was the point. That is how Norway works. The richest sovereign wealth fund on earth, built on North Sea oil, governed by a self-imposed fiscal rule limiting spending to 3% annually. Short-term sacrifice, long-term stability, collective over individual. The same logic printed onto a football tournament. The summer did not change Norway. It revealed Norway. It showed what happens when a society organized around participation, humility, and collective experience is suddenly given a global stage. The instincts did not disappear. They intensified. The world watched Norway celebrate a defeat and saw a charming quirk. What they actually witnessed was a culture performing its deepest values in real time. The row looked like Viking cosplay. It was a society telling itself, this is who we are, and this is enough. Perhaps that is also what people are booking flights to experience, not a place, but a feeling they saw on a screen and recognized as something they have never had. Hidden Norway exists because stories like this, the ones that do not fit the postcard, are what this country actually is. The good, the bad, and sometimes the kind of beautiful that only shows up after a loss. Norway is out of the World Cup, but the country has more to offer. If you find yourself drawn to Norway, the people, the history, the culture, you have come to the right place. Subscribe and follow along.